Okay, you guys, we are back. We are back for our weekly live stream, and I'm with Ned and Kelly Vandiver, and we're here to discuss a very overlooked factor in marriage transformation. This is one of my favorite topics, and I know you guys love this as well, because one of the biggest challenges that we see when we're talking to couples in crisis is that they're so motivated by the pain that they're in that they're not really able to see the vision of where they want to go instead, right? Their primary goal is to not be in pain. And so what they're missing out on is the power of having a really clear conscious goal and what that really looks like, a true vision. So when I ask clients, well, what would it look like instead? And what do you want to create instead? It's actually a lot harder to articulate that.
Yeah.
How do you visualize something that you've never had, if it's something you've never had, or if it's something you used to have, but it's been so long you barely remember? It's really hard to switch gears in that way. And so it's really understandable. It's super common, but it's really problematic oversight. And so we wanted to talk about this today to help you guys, really just to share with you what are the biggest 3 problems that result from the lack of clarity around what your vision actually is, because that's such a personal thing. What a healthy, authentic marriage is going to look like for you, maybe a little bit different than what that looks like for somebody else. So it's a real inside out journey to figure that out. We're also going to talk about why it's so important to have that vision and to start there. Not that it can't evolve over time, but why you have to have something to start with and how that works exactly. And then we're going to talk about what you guys can do to create that for yourself. So what would you guys say is the number 1 problem that comes from not having a clear vision in your work with clients and couples?
I think that it's definitely a lack of direction, like we were talking about earlier. When you don't have a vision, you don't have a direction. And we've all heard some of these phrases that I'm sure I'll spit out, everyone's heard before, but like, you can't hit a target that you can't see. That's something that you hear all the time in the business world and goal setting and things like that. But it's the same thing with your marriage. And so you can't hit a target that you can't see. And it's like, when you have no vision for your marriage, which is really a collective of your goals and your values and your life dreams together and all the different facets of your life, when you don't have that, it's like being a ship at sea with no rudder, and you're just sort of like at the mercy of wherever the sea kind of throws you and steers you. And that's not how you want to live your life. It's not how you want to have a relationship. And so
right, it's like you're guided by where you don't want to go rather than being guided by where you do want to go. And I always say to people this analogy, like if you get into a taxi cab, you don't tell them where you don't want to go, you tell them where you do want to go. A hell of a lot more helpful, and it will save you a lot of time and a lot of wrong turns along the way. So that's huge, that lack of direction that comes from not having a clear idea of like, well, what do I really want instead, as opposed to how do I, focusing on what we don't want. That's a really human thing. And I think that couples that are in crisis, they're in pain. And so ruminating on why it's as bad as it is, and they're in that world of the problem. And they're not able to move past the problem to the vision of like, oh, that's where I'm going and I need to look past that.
Right.
And that's so important.
Yeah. And like you just said, most couples are in pain, and most couples, both usually with couples in crisis, both people know there's something seriously wrong, and everyone deals with it in their own way. But both people are definitely focused on the problems and how crappy things are, which is why they stay stuck in those places, and they have a really hard time, coming out of them. And so, it's best to have a vision so that the thoughts that you're thinking about, the goals, the values, the life dreams, the vision, you have something in common to focus on, to think about together. And the phrase, a couple who prays together stays together. I always say it that your thoughts are your prayers. So your thoughts and what you're constantly thinking about and focusing on is what you're actually praying for in your life. And when you have two people thinking about their goals and their vision together and moving towards them together, that's really powerful. And so when you hear that phrase, a couple who prays together stays together, a common vision is exactly what that Bible verse is talking about. Same thing with being equally yoked with your partner. A common vision is exactly what that verse is talking about as well. It's about being focused, your thoughts focused in a positive direction in the way that you both want to move.
Right.
And doing this together is very powerful. And if you're with someone who isn't willing to do this inner work with you, you do it by yourself. That's very powerful too. So, because we're all powerful creators.
And also
speaking vision, but you can have your own vision too.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. And I was going to say, also speaking to, direction, it's important for people to understand that it also gives them clarity. Like you said, you begin to avoid some of the pitfalls of the unknown because you have a clear roadmap to what it is you want to have in your relationship. So now you have a metric, and you can actually gauge kind of the hot and coldness of the relationship. And speaking from that, it almost becomes a tool for you to use so that you can, so that you can look and say, hey, we might need to address this area because we're both sensing some tension maybe around this issue. Let's have a conversation about that. But as opposed to one person, clearly having a problem and the other person just being totally oblivious to it, so kind of it brings a lot of clarity for the both of you to actively work on a problem if it comes up very quickly,
Exactly. And I like that analogy of a roadmap really, because how I was conceptualizing it is that if, you don't have that clear vision, you don't know where to turn if there's a fork in the road.
Right.
If you're faced with a dilemma and you don't know what your destination is, and you have a choice between two options.
Right.
Which one should I do next? You don't know where to turn if you don't know what your destination is. And it's hard to answer that without a clear vision guiding you. An example of that, and this came up earlier today, actually, in one of the groups. This was in general terms, an example that kind of illustrates this. Let's say, for example, that you want to talk to your spouse about something that's bothering you, and you know that your spouse isn't open to it right now, but you're kind of chomping at the bit, you're bursting with it, right? You might be torn between keeping quiet to keep the peace or speaking up because you know that that's healthy to speak up and use your voice and to rock the boat and to talk things through, right? So you're kind of like, what do I do? And there's really actually arguments to be made for both options, and the answer is going to depend on where you are at in the process. But most importantly, what is the vision that you're supporting? So, for example, if your vision is to have successful talks without judgment from the same team, where you can really talk through your problems from a place of collaboration, then the best option is to find a way to take your thoughts and feelings and prepare to express them in a way that's authentic to you, but it's also honoring where your spouse is at. And that might mean waiting for the right time so that it goes well and setting it up for success. So what might have originally felt like, two mutually exclusive options that you were facing, like to speak or not to speak, when you think about it through the lenses of your vision, you realize that actually the answer is to do the work, to speak with healthy boundaries, no blame, and at a mutually good time. And that's actually a hybrid. That's a hybrid of those two mutually exclusive options that you thought you were dealing with.
Right.
When you for the vision and you start to be guided by that, you're like, you have better solutions, more creative solutions that will come to you. And you realize what might seem like black and white options, actually there's a lot more gray area, and there might be more options than you even think are possible. So it helps you to become not only more focused in terms of your direction and what to do, but more creative in all the different ways that you can get there that would honor what your vision is. Because let's say your vision is like, I want to speak my truth, but I also want to respect my spouse's boundaries. How do I do that in this moment, right? And so creative around that. So that's an example of how tuning into your vision will help you actually make a decision in the moment. But there's tons of examples like that.
Yeah. And the question you can ask yourself in those moments, if you have a vision, right, it's collective and you've talked about it and you guys have really like, you know, fleshed it out together and it's agreed upon, then when things do come up, the question you can ask yourself is this in alignment with my vision? Is this in alignment with our vision?
Yes.
Is speaking this way in alignment with who I want to be,
Yes.
who I am? Is in alignment with our goals, our values? You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, completely. Yeah. So when you have that idea of what it's supposed to look like, then part of that is like, who am I? What kind of person am I that can support that vision? How do I show up in my ideal scenario? And then you look at not only your spouse's actions, but your own actions through those lenses of like, is this supporting? Is this how I would be in my vision? And if the answer is no, then you have to course correct and get more clear on, well, what would that look like?
Yeah. I was going to say it actually promotes a healthier stance if you do have a problem, you know, in any area of your relationship, you know, because like you said, because you have the vision, so you feel like you're more on the same team. So you're going to call out anything. It's going to be from the place of always trying to assist both of you, you know?
Yes, especially if you have a shared vision and you've talked about it and you've articulated it to each other.
Right.
Of course, correct each other from a place of teamwork. Like, hey, remember our vision. Hey, remember I don't think the way we're talking to each other is in support of that vision. And then you can course correct.
Right. Yeah.
And you can do that on your own and you can do that together. It is definitely more powerful if you can do it together, but it definitely also works if you're just doing it on your own.
Yeah.
And most times, just to keep it real, for many, that's where it begins. It really begins. And this work is
starting
work.
Mm-hmm.
It always starts with you anyway. So yeah, if you can do it together, awesome. But it always starts with one person, always.
Yes, that's true. And then eventually one person will be like the leader and then you bring the other person on board.
Right. Or the other person just joins. They're like, yeah, okay, cool. You know, I want to dive in. What are you doing? You know, like, what are you reading? You know, what are you watching?
What's going on? Because when you start living toward your vision, people can start to feel your vision. They start to get glimpses of that. And then their mental energy adds to that.
Yeah.
So that reminds me too, like just in terms of the second issue that I see that comes up with not having a vision is the lack of hope and the lack of moving towards a solution where you're really staying in the problem mindset and you're operating from like you're in this place of suffering, but you're not operating from the assumption that it could ever be different without a vision, right? Because the facts of your environment right now, how your spouse is talking to you right now, the resentments that you're feeling right now might not support your vision in the future.
Right.
So the trick is, you know, to remember that you're not going to get past the facts of your immediate situation unless you can hold the vision of something beyond that. And that's sort of the irony, right? But vision lets you know what's possible. It changes your mental outlook and it brings you into positive energy of hope, of knowing that it is possible. And then when you have that positive energy, that allows you to take actions that transcend the messages of your immediate environment.
Right.
The vision allows you to act in new ways before you feel ready to behave as though something is a certain way that it actually isn't yet. Right? It's like you have to make it true inside of yourself first or in your own mind first before it can manifest in the material world.
You have to be first the person who has what it is you want.
Yeah.
Exactly. You don't let what happened yesterday determine what's possible.
Yeah.
Right.
And I always tell people, if you want a great marriage, if you want great love is a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. It's a choice. And a person who has a great love, a person who has a great relationship is someone who bees, a person who has that. And that person is a person who has a spiritual practice of inner healing, of doing the healing work, of doing the inner work, of doing the growth work. Those are the people who have happy, healthy relationships. You have to be that person before you're going to have what you want.
Right. Yeah, and again, speaking to what you,
commitment, discipline, and a host of other qualities.
Yeah, and again, speaking to what you said, Monika, about, people wanting a different result requires a different action.
Mm-hmm.
And since we know, your thoughts become things,
Mm-hmm.
you obviously have to get into the mode of thinking very differently than you have been thinking. And you can't do that when you're focused on the problem. Okay?
Exactly. It's like you're waiting for the circumstances to change before you will change or before you will act differently.
Right.
And it's actually the other way around.
Right.
People work backwards. It's
Mm-hmm.
people go, if I have to have the relationship that I want first in order for me to show up and do the things that my partner wants, and then and then I'll be that person, right?
Yeah.
That's the backwards model, have, do, be, and it's people are working backwards. I have to have this first. That's the old relationship model.
Yeah.
And
I also want to say
it's about being.
Yeah, and I really want to make sure people understand this, because it's one of the hardest things to actually get when we're talking about transformation. And we say it all the time, and we talk about, hey, you got to be it first. You have to think different thoughts to have a different result. It's very challenging when you first start. And we know, because most people have a negative bias, culturally, it's kind of promoted.
Mm-hmm.
So we say this and we make this point because we want people to really understand the importance of how much control you actually have over the circumstance of your life. It's not just happening to you, and I want people to really understand that, especially when we're talking about relationships. And I know every relationship is different and nuanced, and I get that part. But we're talking about just people having regular problems in their marriages.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's what you're saying is it's so true, because we tend to think I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
But it's really that we'll see it when we believe it, and
you'll never see it.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said, and you'll never see it.
Right, exactly. It's exactly, if you use the current reality to build your vision, then it's never going to look really any different than what it is. It's really only if you're envisioning that we can rise above what's true right now, or to rise above the limits of a current reality. Right. And it's hard, like you say, Ned, it is so hard to get. It's hard to hold a vision of the future when the present moment does not support that vision. Right. But it is the single biggest skill that successful couples have in turning around their marriage.
Yeah.
And
if we could boil it down to one thing, if people could get this one thing, there would be so many things that would grow from that.
Yeah, yeah.
And the other thing that people need to keep in mind is, if you don't create your own vision based on your values and your dreams and your goals, what you're doing is you're living a life and you're creating a marriage based on the vision of
somebody else,
your parents, your grandparents, and all the negative things that you have been programmed with, your traumas.
Yep.
That's your vision. You see, because what's happening outside of us in our external reality is just a projection of what's going on up here,
right,
in our minds. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't like what you're seeing, then you got to change what's going on between your ears and take control and learn how to master your mind and do this inner work, or you will continue to play out the vision of whoever programmed you as a child.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that is like the perfect lead-in to the third and final one that we're talking about today, problem that comes from not having a good and clear vision, which is that if you don't have a vision, you can't see what beliefs you need to build to create your vision. Right. Yeah. By creating a vision, you gain clarity around the beliefs that you need to build to get there. And you become really clear on, like you say, Kelly, the programs that really are not serving us, that were just inherited or downloaded into our brains before we had a choice.
Right.
We can consciously choose what is between our ears and to change what we believe to support that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you want a mutually respectful, loving marriage where you're on the same team, then you know that you need to develop strong beliefs around your own capacity to remain respectful in spite of what anybody else is doing. Or if somebody else isn't respectful, right? You need to believe that you can do it, and you need to believe that you're worthy of a mutual, loving, respectful relationship if there's any part of you that doubts it. And those are just a couple of beliefs, but there's lots more that would go into that. There's a lot of beliefs that could get in the way of getting to your vision.
Yeah.
But the vision is what will help you realize what's actually stopping you, ironically.
Yeah. Again, it brings clarity.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the vision helps us ask, okay, what do I need to believe if I can picture what I really want? And won't that be so amazing? I can't wait for that. The next question is, what do I need to believe to attract and create and sustain this in my life?
Yeah.
What do I need to believe? Who do I need to be? Like you said, Kelly, who do I need to be? But a lot of that is, what do I need to believe to be that person?
Right.
Will attract and create and sustain what that vision is. And that's where the real work begins, right? But at least then you have clarity on where you're going and what the work is for. Because
Right.
I see so many people doing the work in a misguided, like they don't have the clarity around what the point of it is. And so they're kind of stabbing in the dark.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
For what they really want. It might be for to keep the peace, or it might be for what their husband wants, or some other, like you say, inherited vision. So that inside out piece of clarity is so important.
Yeah.
It is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be the person first who already has. That's a challenge for most people, and it takes work. You do the work until it takes. That's how long it takes.
Mm-hmm.
You do it and you do it and you do it over and over again until you see a result. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's another thing people
Do what it takes.
also need to understand is, and I understand everyone wants a solution. I get that. And how long that takes or how quickly you're able to actually have that solution is really determined by how much time you're willing to work on yourself.
Yeah.
Specifically around your specific issues, so that you can begin to tackle the harder issues that are created, together. And I know, and it's really hard for a lot of people because, like you said, we have a tendency to try, and when we don't get the results, we stop. And you're never going to see the results. It's just like quitting. You're never going to see anything come to fruition when you stop doing what you need to be doing, especially when you know it's to help you and it can help you. It's really important for people to really understand that. Don't give up. Don't stop. Keep doing it. And then you'll begin to see things change, but you have to stay with it.
And the reason why people give up, I could not agree more. That's what separates the people that are successful from the people that aren't, is just that refusal to give up. But the reason why people give up is because they're not sure that what they're doing works, because they're not sure where, they don't know what they're actually supposed to be doing because they don't have that vision.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So what were you going to say, Kelly?
I was on one thought, but then it shifted. Because I said this to Ned earlier, and it's so true, especially with myself included, is that people have this idea that it's like, okay, if these people have what I want, if these people have done it, there must be this certain way to do it, and I'm most likely fucking it up, and I'm not doing something right. There's something I'm not doing right because of this illusion of perfection. And there are so many ways to heal yourself, and there's so many ways to do this work. There are different modalities and coaches and programs and all that. But the point is that you have to, in order to do this work and get the results, there is no perfect path. There is no perfect way to do this. And you have to be committed. You have to be committed. You have to be focused, and you have to be disciplined in the work. 3 words that I struggled with for many years of my life. But those are the qualities a person who's able to transform their lives has.
Yes.
Commitment, focus, discipline. You know what I mean? And so
much a part of tapping back into that discipline is remembering where you're going.
Yeah.
Excited about that.
Exactly.
Right.
And trusting the process. Trusting the process. Because everyone's on their own path.
No, it's not like you just know
it's the right path.
Yeah, right. There's bumps and valleys along the way, and there's, but there's clarity that comes from action. But the vision helps you take that action in the right direction.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you're never going to stumble, but you recommit to that vision, again and again, and that gives you that motivation to keep to keep that commitment and that discipline. Because it's like a spiritual practice in a way, and it's not something that happens overnight.
Right.
So,
and like you said, it's important that people understand that they're going to stumble. It's part of the process. And to think otherwise, you're gonna have a really difficult time going through this. It's just the reality of change. I mean, it's just part of it.
It's uncomfortable.
Real transformation in any area of life.
Yeah.
There's growing pains and blood, sweat, and tears in anything that they create that they never had before. Anytime you're trying to create something that doesn't exist before, you're going against the status quo. There's going to be some effort, some struggle, some conflict, some discomfort. That's part of it. But if you have the vision, it is so much easier and faster.
Yeah.
So I wanted to leave people with some ideas around what they could do to get clear on the vision. And I know, Kelly, you have questions that you ask people to help them get clear on their vision. And I do too. But the number one thing, and I want to ask you about that, but the number one thing essentially is to get clear on what you want. So if you're listening to this and you're trying to think about, well, all right, where do I want to go? Really for you, like if you could think really big and not be limited by what you think is possible or what your husband or wife thinks, but just really what do you want? What do you truly desire? What does that look like? And in that vision, what's happening? How are you feeling? What things are happening in your mind's eye that would have you celebrating, and how are you showing up? That's kind of, those are the questions I ask to kind of help people move in that direction.
Yeah.
Start there.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
So, so values, what are your personal values, right? What are your personal goals? What are your life dreams? And then what are your goals and your values and your life dreams together as a couple? You know what I mean?
Yeah, because they might not be exactly the same, but there's probably some overlap.
Right.
Right.
And where do they overlap? And then where are the discrepancies where they don't overlap? Let's talk about those so that we come up with a plan of action around how to work with that and deal with that. Yeah. And also, well, what's behind this? There's always inner work to be done. But mostly, and when people think of values, not values so much, but goals, people are very outwardly focused. It's like, oh,
what's most important, your priority,
the house, the money, and all of that. Okay, that's great. That's all cool. But what about how you want to feel? Like you said earlier, Monika, how do you want to be feeling every day in your marriage? As a woman, how do you want to be feeling? How do you want to be treated by your man? What kinds of things do you want to hear from him said to you? What do you deeply desire to hear from him? What kinds of things do you want him to say to you? Same thing with the men. How do I want my wife to be with me? How do I want her to talk to me, treat me? And everyone's so different in terms of like the way that they show love,
Yeah.
Some people are more verbal. Some people are more physical. Some people are more like to do stuff to show appreciation. So it's important that you're both really clear about how you like to give and receive love as well. because a lot of times a problem is your partner's not showing you love in the way that you receive it best.
Right.
And maybe they don't even know how you receive it best, so they're just not aware.
Mm-hmm.
And if both of you are really clear with one another about what you like, then it just makes things that much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be clear about it, not only for yourself, but with your spouse too.
Right.
You know?
So it's part of the vision, because you want to be held in a certain way and spoken to in a certain way, because you want to feel a certain way. It's important.
Yeah.
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 And the other thing I was going to say is, if I would give any advice, it would be, I encourage people to focus on the intangibles. You know, when we're in a world of this, you know, like you said, we're outwardly focused, physical stuff, this stuff, it becomes people's gods or new god or whatever. And it really replaces a lot of the stuff that really needs to be worked on. And because it's very temporary, these things in terms of how they make us feel. You know, you go for a new car, a new house, all these things are nice, like Kelly's saying, but if that's the primary focus, it's going to get old. There's so many people we talk to who have been chasing the dollars, chasing the things, and they have all the money and they don't have any happiness.
Yeah.
You know, and so I would encourage people to really dig deep, find out what makes them, like you said, feel good.
Yeah.
What are those intangible things that, you know, between the two of you that you recognize that could use some improvement, and you could, you know, find a better way to do them, at least.
Yeah.
Because,
quality of the connection.
yeah, because these things are going to open up the gateway to these things being really nice and having a really good experience around them, because you feel better, you know. And that's where we're leading from, is just like really get to the places inside of yourself where you get to be confident, and really be confident with your partner, because you're able to enjoy your life so much more, you know.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. I mean, people that have all the accolades and all the accomplishments and all the material successes, if they don't have a good relationship in their life, they're just not happy.
Right.
You know, and studies have shown that the quality of your relationships determine the quality of your life more than anything else. So that's a really good point. Focus on the intangibles. How do you want to feel? What's the energy between you? What is the quality of your connection and that kind of thing? Because, sorry, there was feedback on my, can you guys hear that?
No, I don't hear it.
Okay, good. That, how do you want to feel and move into that place? Because connection is something that you feel.
Yeah.
You know, that heart-to-heart connection. Communication, obviously, that's stuff that you can learn. Those are tools and techniques. But without those deeper intangibles in place, what's it all for?
Exactly.
You know, there is no point. So, so you want to get clear on what you want, using these questions as a guide. Start there. What does it look like? What do you imagine specifically, including the intangibles? Then tune into that every day, right? I always tell my clients, tune into your vision every day, set your intention in the morning, look at it, use it as a guide for what needs to happen, and take intelligent action on the changes that need to happen based on that vision every day. And you might not know the answer, but at least you'll know what questions to ask. If I want to hear, what do I need to do for this? It just gives you the right questions to at least start answering.
Yeah.
And that's important with the consistency in that. Not just something you think about and you write down on a piece of paper once and then you put it in your drawer and you never think about it again. The vision needs to be kept alive in order to get real traction and real movement quicker.
We actually print our vision statements out, and we literally have them posted on our wall, like literally right across from our bed, our dream house. And it's right there. So we see it when we go to bed. We see it when we wake up. We see it all the time. Our kids see that it's there. So they're getting programmed with all these kinds of habits as well.
They inquire and they ask questions about it, and they think it's awesome. And they see it, and they're like, "Oh, you can have that," and it's just like you can have anything you want, you know. You know. So it really kind of helps with the next generation when they see, you know, how to create, you know, and what it takes to do it. And
Start here.
It's really awesome. Yeah.
And the other part of the solution is to catch yourself. When you catch yourself in these negative mind spins of being focused on what the problem is, realize that you can never grow from that place, but you will only stay stuck if you stay in that place.
Yes, that's a good point. Just focus 1 to 5% of your mental energy on what the problem is and understanding the problem, and then move right into what am I going to do about it?
What's the solution? Yeah.
Into action around that. Yeah. Well, thank you guys. This is really, there's so much more to say on this.
Sure.
But I think that this is a good overview of just not only in the importance of the vision, but how people can get started and leveraging that so they can start pivoting out of where they don't want to be and moving to where they want to be.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this and you decide you want to get some help around this, if you want support around getting to your marriage goals, then just go to monikahoyt.com/talk and let us help you. This is something we can help you get clear on, you know, some of these things as it relates to your unique relationship, because everybody's relationship is different, and really just see what it would take to get you into that deeply fulfilling, connected, healthy place, not to mention loving relationship. That's what it's all about ultimately, as far as I'm concerned. That's what we help people create every day, all day. That's what we do. So go to monikahoyt.com/talk and you can schedule a free conversation with us. And then we'll just have an honest talk about what that would look like for you and what's getting in the way. Also, you can let us know your comments, your questions in the comments below if you have any questions about what we've talked about. You can invite people to this group if you think that they can benefit, or tag them if you feel like this would be helpful for them as well. And that's it for today. I want to thank you again, Kelly and Ned, for joining me. It's always a pleasure to talk about this stuff with you guys. And we will catch you guys next week. I hope you have a good rest of the week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.